Good evening and welcome everyone to our Full Sail On Air session with Scott Vedder. This evening he's joining us to talk about his book, Signs of a Great Resume. He's not only the author of this #1 best-selling book on Amazon.com, but additionally he's conducted over 5,000 interviews with a Fortune 100 company. He's a speaker, he's a coach, and he's an amazing inspiration to bring excitement to the concept of resumes. So without further ado, I want to welcome Scott Vedder to our stage.
Thank you, Cassie. Appreciate it. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today. Hi, everybody watching online. Good to see you, or for you to see me. I'm Scott Vedder, and like Cassie said, I wrote a book, Signs of a Great Resume. That's me. I'm on a book. And we'll talk a lot about that today. We'll talk a lot about you and how we can help you write a resume that speaks for itself. But first, let's take a look at this guy. Let's go to the slides there, and we'll take a look at this little guy who looks like a cartoon resume. And he appears to be cursing at you. Well, I promise he's not cursing at you. What he's doing is showing you how to write a resume that speaks for itself. And that's what we're going to get into today. But first, let's take a look at some numbers. There's some numbers. The first one's 100, and like Cassie said, it stands for the Fortune 100, and that's where I worked as a recruiter. So the Fortune 100, some of the biggest companies around, right? Like the Boeings and Exxons and Pfizers of the world, entertainment companies like Disney, places you shop every day like Target and Walmart and Walgreens, some of the most competitive places to get a job in any field, right? 5,000 is the number of interviews I did in my office before, frankly, I stopped keeping count. There's a lot of interviews, but I love doing interviews. Who loves doing interviews? This guy. I love doing interviews. It's like hosting a talk show for 30 minutes, and I get to be Oprah or Jimmy Fallon or whoever, right? And I get to find out all these great stories about people's lives. But 5,000 interviews taught me a lot of things. Taught me what makes a great interview, taught me what makes a great resume, and importantly, it taught me that only the people with the best resumes are the ones who get interviews. So take a guess. If I'm going to sort through 5,000 interviews, how many resumes do you think I'm screening before I pick which 5,000 people to interview? Just shout out a number. 5,000 interviews. They're on to me. It could be a million. Look at that. All right, so I don't know if it's a million, but the point is a lot of people apply for every job that gets posted, especially in a competitive field like the entertainment field. So you might have 100, 200, 300 applicants for a single job, and most of them will never get an interview. So what's the #1 stand for? Well, using the things I learned in the 5,000 interviews I did and sorting through my share of the 1 million resumes, I wrote the #1 best-selling resume book on Amazon.com. No, anyway, one isn't about me. The one's about you, because you're the only one who matters in your job search, right? These other million people, they're lovely. They're your friends, your classmates. They're in this room with you right now. But they're not the ones you want to have get the job. You are. You're the one who has to stand out. You got to stand out for all the right reasons. I'll also tell you some funny stories about people that stood out for the wrong reasons. So I interviewed a guy who was worked his whole life in the public sector. He was a proud public servant. He majored in public administration, and he was applying to be like the director of the public library. So on his resume, he put extensive experience dealing with the pubic. Right. So a simple spelling error, right? But imagine this guy walks into an interview with that on his resume. Every time the recruiter looks at his face, all they're going to think of is his spelling error. What did you think I meant? Anyway, so that's how to stand out the wrong way. We'll teach you the right way. There's one other number I want to show you, and that's this one. It's 1600. It stands for 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. You're familiar with the address? Yes, there's a bunch of people who would like to move into that address, I understand, this year that are vying for it, right? Well, I had the pleasure of meeting the current occupant, Miss Michelle Obama, at the Veterans Institute, where we were helping veterans get back to work using the Signs of a Great Resume. Well, she liked what I had to say. I got the selfie of the century. Check that out. I had her hold the phone. No, I'm kidding. Secret Service didn't dig that. So anyway, she liked what I had to say about helping veterans get to work. She liked it so much that I earned myself a personal invitation to meet in the First Lady's office at the White House and to meet at the Pentagon in the office of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to help veterans find great civilian employment. So I know we've got some family members of veterans in the room and even some who may have served. So I just always like to pause, take a quick minute, say thank you for your service. Give them a round of applause. Thank you. Great job. Thank you. It's always important to thank our veterans. The thank you I got for helping out at the White House was a big, sloppy, wet kiss from Sonny Obama, the president's dog. who is like blissfully unaware that she's the dog of the leader of the free world. She's like, welcome to my house, rub my belly. Do you touch the dog in the White House? You can play with the dog. So anyway, I wrote a veterans edition of the book, and we could certainly take questions specific to veterans as well. So let's take a look at this. Let's go back to all of you. This is what most recruiters' desks look like. There's resumes coming in from all over the place, and they all look pretty much the same. And that's because they all read pretty much the same, because most people are making the same mistake on their resume. It's the most deadly mistake that you can make. They write a resume that reads like a job description. A resume that reads like a job description. So think about like a teacher. If a teacher writes, taught English classes, graded papers and tracked grades, prepared students for the next level. What do you do, right? You know, what good does that do me as the recruiter? Not a lot at all. If this is a desk full of teacher resumes that are written like that, how do I know how to interview? Who to interview? I have no idea where to start. And that's most people are doing this biggest mistake. Most recruiters experience this every single day. All these resumes that are written like job descriptions. That's tough. And if your resume is written like a job description, you're making that biggest mistake too. Of course, the way that you stand out in the right way is you use the signs of a great resume, and then your resume will pop out for all the right reasons. Speaking of popping out, I had a young lady interview in what I would describe as a sundress and not a lot on underneath it. So while I want an applicant to open up in the interview, she was about falling out for the world. So she did not get the job. And the next receptionist comes in. She goes, "Oh, don't worry, Scott. Your next applicant is all dressed up." I said, "Good." So I walk out to the lobby. And he's all dressed up. The problem is he's all dressed up like a pirate. He had like a hat and a sword and a parrot. It was very strange. I think he was auditioning for some dinner show later. Didn't get the job either. So the last lady of the day, she's professionally dressed and I'm excited, but I could tell she's nervous. And she's itching, she's scratching. She's so nervous. So I'm like, "Hey, how you doing? Calm down. It's all right. I'm a nice guy." She's scratching. She starts to scratch so hard she opens a sore on her arm and she's bleeding at my desk. It's not good. So I say, "Thank you for coming. Unfortunately, it's not going to work." She says, "Okay, thank you." She wants to shake. I couldn't believe it. But they stood out for the wrong reasons. The way to make your resume stand out is use the signs of a great resume. So check it out. Anybody got their resume here with them today? Take it out if it's on paper. Of course, we're at Full Sail, so it's probably electronic. That's fine too. But here's the game I want you to play. I want you to fold back the top third of that paper or just cover your name on the screen. Then reread what you have written. Without your name on it, could it be somebody else's resume? Are you making the most deadly mistake today? Does your resume just read like a job description? See, a recruiter doesn't know your name, right? Everybody in here has a name? Yes, good, I thought so. That's not helpful to me. Everyone's got a unique name, but I don't know your name. It's what's underneath your name that matters. That's how you need to stand out. So we're going to play a little guessing game here, okay? I'm going to show you a very specific person's resume. And raise your hand when you think you know exactly who I'm talking about. You'll see when it's written like a job description, it is hard to do. And I bet you'll have a difficult time discerning whether this person deserves an interview or not. Check it out. So interfaced with new contacts and met with senior leaders. Do you know exactly who that is? It's a very specific person. No, probably not, right? How about led a team to accomplish complex tasks on a deadline as directed? It's tough. Traveled on short notice to distinct foreign lands, including large cities with diverse populations. And how about achieved benchmarks and exceeded goals, earning recognition and rewards for associates? Any guesses who that is?
Yeah.
The president? I get that a lot. No, it's not the president. Any other guesses? No? All right. Well, Donald Trump is not him either. If you need a hint, you're not alone. So would a recruiter, right? This person took a lot of time to write these resume-ish kind of words in these sentences they think I want to hear, like interfaced with new contacts. Yay! Achieved benchmarks that exceeded goals. For what? What industry are they in? We have no idea whether they're a billionaire tycoon or the president or anywhere in between. We have no clue. But this person thinks that's what I want to hear. It's not. They're making the biggest mistake. In a moment, we'll rewrite this person's resume using the signs of a great resume, and you'll see exactly how quickly you know just who I'm talking about. But first, let's get back to all this. Now, you're probably thinking that the signs still look like a curse word in a comic strip. Incidentally, cursing's another bad idea on your resume. So I do one-on-one resume reviews and interview coaching with people all over the country. And I had a young lady come to me. She needed my help a lot. She was like the overnight leader of a convenience store of some kind, and she had a good job. She was leading people, and she was the manager on duty. On her resume, she told me she was the third shift supervisor, but she misspelled shift. There was no F. You get what I mean, right? Okay, so that's a bad idea. This is not a curse word. These are the signs. This is what you want on your resume. Check it out. What are the signs of a great resume? The first one is exclamation point. Any part of your experience that was amazing. Wow, look at what I did. Nobody else can say that. The @ symbol, defining points, places, dates, and things in your career. At what company did you work? At what .com can you be reached? At what point did you gain the experience? Numbers that quantify and prove your past successes. The dollar value of your contributions. And finally, percents, figures that easily show growth and results. That's what matters. Now, if you need to remember what the signs are, check this out. You look down at your keyboard, and the numbers 1 to 5. I came up with that. Isn't that clever? Anyway, so that's the signs of a great resume. So picture my life as a recruiter. That's what matters. That's what the book is about. That's what the signs are all about. Don't I want to know what you did the best? Is it important for me to know at what point you gained the most relevant experience for the job I'm hiring for? Don't those numbers and dollars and percent help to quantify what makes you a great candidate for the job? Isn't it better when your resume is full of this? I've got props too. Okay, so these are the signs of a great resume. Before we go on, anybody unclear on that? That's the big difference when you use the signs of a great resume that you'll make for a recruiter in your job search. So let's go back to that example I showed you before. In this bad example, do you see any signs? No. There's nothing amazing. You don't know at what point they gained the experience, and there's no numbers, dollars, or percents. So this time, don't say it out loud because you'll spoil the fun for everyone else. Just raise your hand when you think you know exactly whose resume this is when we use the same resume with the signs of a great resume. Here's the good version. Survived a powerful T5 tornado after being transported 10,000 miles in a home with 3 bedrooms and 1 outhouse. Don't say it out loud. All right? How about counseled and inspired 3 associates in search of intellect, compassion, and courage? All right? Some more of you may know. 100% success rate defeating evil, wicked witches. All right, I think just about everyone's on board. But just in case, liberated 135 munchkins from the tyranny of an oppressive Eastern enemy, rewarded with custom footwear adorned with 4,600 red rubies. Now you can say it. Who is it? Dorothy, right. There is no one else on earth whose resume this could be. But that was Dorothy's resume I showed you before. Interfaced with new contacts, led a team, went to diverse foreign lands. When she made the biggest mistake and wrote a resume like a job description, you didn't know who she was and you wouldn't hire her for anything. But if I'm hiring someone to, I don't know, hunt wicked witches, I'm probably going to go after the candidate who's got a 100% success rate, right? Dorothy's making the difference. And when Dorothy uses the signs, you instantly see why she's a great candidate. Now, of course, Dorothy is a fictitious great candidate, so let's see how it plays out in the real world. At the beginning, I said an English teacher might write, taught English classes. That would just be the job description of a teacher, right? How about instead she writes, taught 4 unique courses at Memorial Middle School, including advanced English, literature, and comp with classes up to 24 students. Aha, you're already seeing how the signs are playing out. If she writes graded papers and tracked grades, la-di-da, that's what every teacher does. How about instead, reviewed over 200 assignments each week and designed a grade tracking system that increased input efficiency by more than 50%. That's a big difference, yeah? How about prepared students for the next grade? Well, she better. That's her job to do it. Instead, she successfully prepared students for high school with a pass rate of 98%, and that was an increase of 2% over the previous year. And that reduced remedial summer school costs by nearly $8,000. See the difference that the teacher using the signs of a great resume has? Instantly, you see at what school she worked, Memorial Middle School, my alma mater. Go Eagles. You understand what kind of classes she's taught, how big the classes have been, the number of assignments she grades each week. Is it her job to design a grade tracking system? No, she didn't have to do that. She's there to teach poetry and where's the proper placement of adjectives, right? But she does this and she goes above and beyond. And that makes the difference. It cuts the time she does her input by 50%. That spreads to every teacher in the district. She'll win Teacher of the Year. How about successfully prepared students for 2% better than last year? If you're the parent of that 2% of kids, you're pretty happy they had her for a teacher, right? And do most teachers quantify their experience using dollar signs? Probably not. Who went to a school where $8,000 is probably a big deal? Just about all of us, right? So that's important. The signs are what matters. And the teacher on the left who just writes a job description isn't going to get an interview because any teacher could write it. The one on the right, that is uniquely her experience, and she'll get an interview for the job that she deserves. So teaching is one example. I've got a myriad examples that we can go through, but the important thing is on the left, you always see a job description. That's what recruiters see every day. On the right, when people use the signs of a great resume, you get a clearer picture of what makes them a great candidate. They quantify and explain their experience so a recruiter like me can hire them and interview them, and they're going to get the job. Put on your hats as a recruiter. Would you interview the people on the left? No, who would? Would you interview the people on the right? So would I. I did. So that's the signs of a great resume. So no matter where you apply, you're probably going to have to apply online at some point. So we're going to talk a little about the online job application process. The first thing I want you to do is go searching for yourself. Tonight when you go home, I mean literally, go searching. Go to Google or Yahoo or Bing or any of them, and type in your name to the little search box and see what do you find. What do your top search results look like? Here's why. 3 out of 4 recruiters check Google and Facebook. What's your profile picture right now? What's on your cover page? Is it the professional image you want to convey to a prospective employer? Or are you playing flip cup before the big football game? You know, what are you doing, right? Here's what you could do. 43% of the time, recruiters don't like what they find. Almost half the time, all a recruiter has to do is Google an applicant and they're out. That's bad. So you can do good things out there. You can lock down your privacy settings, of course. You can make sure that anything that is forward-facing to people who aren't your friends or contacts is appropriate. But you can also add good information. 92% of companies use social media, mostly LinkedIn, to find new talent. Who's on LinkedIn right now? Check it out. If you're not, your competition is. So am I. You can connect with me. Say we work together at Signs of a Great Resume. So that's a good connection to start with. But guess what the signs of a great LinkedIn profile are? Same signs. Just copy paste. It doesn't have to be complicated because recruiters are on there doing passive recruitment. They're looking for candidates who have your skills. Why wouldn't you advertise that you're available? You can also join groups where you can add to the conversation and show your expertise in something. So LinkedIn can be a good tool to get good information out there about your qualifications too. The other thing I want you to do is get a new email address, ideally your name at whatever.com. So, that works for many people, but if you're John Smith, you can do John.Smith or John Smith, insert name of city. But sometimes people get creative. So I want you to avoid email addresses which are inappropriate or could be misinterpreted. So somebody who's new to the job market who writes name 1994 at whatever.com. What's the 94 mean? Birth year maybe, or the year they got their doctorate, the year they got out of the military. I don't know, but we can't use your age to consider you in employment, right? So we don't even want to know. Keep the years out of it. Kathy Terry has a pretty common name, so she gets creative. She's like, oh, you know what? I'll just shorten it. That'll be nice. She ends up as a Catheter. And finally, if you're a poet, you've heard the saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. The pen is mightier than the sword. It's a great saying, but a terrible email address. What? All the other speakers don't write that on the screen in full set? Okay, fine. So we'll move on, but you get the idea. So there's more things in the book that we'll review in brief here, and then I'll take your questions because I want to hear from all of you. Objective. I want you to write a better objective. I will tell you the objective that most people teach you to write. It goes a little something like this. To get a challenging job and a rewarding career with growth and happiness ever after. Right? Have you heard this? So have I. I'm tired of hearing it. You don't need to tell me that, right? That has no value whatsoever. When you are applying for a job, what is your objective? To get the job. Yes, isn't that simpler? So how about you just write objective, title of the job you're applying for. Show me you customized it. Show me that I might be the only job you're applying for. Help me stay organized if my desk is messy like the first desk I showed you and I know what pile to put you in, right? Speed dating, these things where it's like, hi, I'm Scott, I'm a Capricorn, I like walks on the beach. Bing! Hi, I'm Scott, I'm a Capricorn, I like walks on the beach. Bing! Hi, I'm Scott, I'm a Capricorn. Aren't they terrible? I mean, I've heard. I don't know. So anyway, the idea with speed dating is you want to catch someone's eye quickly, you want to get asked for your phone number, you want to get a call the next day. Well, the same thing applies in recruiting, doesn't it? You've got to catch a recruiter's eye quickly and hope they call you for an interview. A recruiter is going to look at your resume for somewhere between 7 and 30 seconds before we decide no or maybe. 7 seconds. That is not a whole lot of time. So you've got to quickly catch my eye with a summary of qualifications. You can put that right after your objective. I call it summary of qualifications because if I'm only going to read something for 7 seconds, I'm probably going to start with something named summary. So that's why I don't call it like a brand profile or anything like that. And then I want to also make sure that you include in there some of the technical skills they're asking for in the job posting. It's kind of like a coming attractions for your resume, to put it in the entertainment context. So if you were writing like a movie trailer, like in a world where this is my experience, and you were then going to summarize what you have below, you would write your summary. So write it last, just like you produce a movie trailer once you've already made the movie, mostly. The other thing you can put in your summary is, si ustedes hablan más que un idioma, está bien importante que su empleador sabe eso inmediatamente, ¿no? Porque la mayoría de las personas no hablan. If you fala portugués, habla español, upalele creole, nihongo hana shini nani masuka. If you talk, yeah, that's all I can do. If you talk another language, I want to know that immediately. Because the pile of people that apply in the 1 million versus the pile of people that talk another language to which my employees or customers might relate, it's a pretty small pile here. You want to be in the small pile as quickly as possible. You also want to indicate if you're a military veteran or the spouse supporting a military veteran, for instance. We say military family member, so that marital status doesn't come into play. You could say supporting a military family member because you may be eligible, if you're a veteran or family member, for targeted hiring programs offered by many companies. Cover it up like that lady in the sundress should have done. This case, I mean write a custom cover letter. I've got a template for a cover letter in the book. You just fill in the blanks, makes your life very easy. It's another way to rack up more keywords, so that's a good place to add more of the keywords from the posting, because what goes on in the resume and recruiting software is not magic. There's not like a genie in a bottle doing anything crazy behind the scenes. It's just math. I say, dear computer, look for these words. Give me the word score from every resume I've received, and give everybody a rank from 1 to 1 million. Do you think I am ever reading resume 300,000 anything? No. You're not even getting my 7 seconds. So ratchet up the word score by using more keywords from my posting in your resume and the cover letter. No BS, please. I think you know what I mean here. Don't abbreviate the name of your college degree. What did you think that meant? So anyway, if you have a Bachelor of Science degree, please spell it out. And by the way, it's Bachelor of Science, not bachelor's. There is no S on that fancy piece of paper that Full Sail is going to give you, all right? I promise. And where you put your education may vary. If it's recent or most relevant, you might put it sooner. If it's a while ago, you might put it further down. Or if it's not the thing that qualifies you most, like your work experience is better, you may put it further down on your resume. If you're having a resume malfunction, like you've been in a couple different career fields or you've hopped around or had periods of unemployment, consider a functional resume. And in Signs of a Great Resume, I talk you through how to create a great functional resume, which is basically your greatest hits album for resumes. Instead of bulleting items that are using the signs under each job, you put them under categories of leadership, of business, of entertainment experience, of technical expertise, and then tell me where you worked in a professional history. And that could be a great way to call my attention to your qualifications, more so than where you had worked. Keeping online posting in line. All right, so you can go to like whatever website you want to, and you can like apply to every single job in the universe, right? Don't do that. Bad idea. You're not qualified for every job out there, and recruiters start to know who's applying for everything, and they just go, all right, skip that one. What you should do is print out the job posting, on paper. You can recycle it later for you environmental folks. That's great. Print it out, and then I want you to circle the qualifications you've got and put an X through the ones that you don't. If you got more circles than X's, you should apply. But if you can't do the basic things that I'm telling you you must be able to do every day in my job posting, don't waste your time, or mine, applying for a job that you can't do, right? The other reason you should print out the job posting is because usually at 11:59 on a Sunday night, I'm going to close the posting. It will go away and you'll never see it again. But guess what I'm going to ask you about when it comes time to interview? The stuff I wrote in the job posting. That becomes your interview guide. That's what we're going to talk about when we meet face-to-face. But I'm not going to give you the answer key more than once. So when it's out there on the job posting, save it as a PDF, print it out, whatever you want to do, so that you can have it readily at hand to help you prepare for the interview. And finally, the self-interview worksheet. So after this very clever book with lots of great stories, illustrations, and whatnot, there's also an interview worksheet at the back, which explains where can you look for the signs of a great resume in your experience. You'll notice these are not the signs of great work experience. They're the signs of a great resume. Everything counts when it's relevant and when you can quantify it using the signs. Your education counts. Internships count. Volunteerism can count. Anything that you've done that might make you a great candidate for the job, when you can describe it using the signs, can be included on your resume. And if you write them down in the book, in the self-interview worksheet, you'll have that with you forever. Because what you did 2 jobs ago, you might not remember when it's time to apply for a job where that's really relevant. So keep track of the signs throughout your career. So my last story is my favorite. I had this candidate come in. They were well-dressed, like a business person, not a pirate. They had professional attire, good handshake. They weren't scratching anything, had undergarments on, and everything was going well. So I thought this is going to be a great interview, and it was. I remembered why I brought them in. They had a clear objective. Their resume caught my eye right away. They were using the signs. I thought, I bet they read my book. I was so proud. Well, I don't know if they did, but they did get the job, and they lived happily ever after. So whose story is that? Well, I want it to be your story, and yours, and yours, and yours, and yours, and yours, and yours, and all of yours, because you can do this. You can get the job of your dreams. You can get an interview for the job that you deserve, but you'll only do it when your resume is full of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Scott. So much great information as far as making sure you have great details on your resume. We'll go ahead and open the floor if there are any questions. While we wait to gather some questions, though, I wanted to ask you one quick question. A lot of students ask, how do we quantify experience from when we were younger to be able to reflect for a professional job? And I know you have a great example of one of your first job experiences and how you reworked it a little bit.
Right. When I was 14 years old, I got my first job working at the town pool, serving French fries and candy to little campers. They were just so adorable. And they were hungry, and there was masses of them. But I probably don't mention that now. I probably lead off with the whole Fortune 100 recruiter bestselling author been to the White House bit, That's probably where I defer to. But if I was applying for a job as the director of human resources for the corporate chain of whatever restaurant, you can imagine, that might be an indication that I say, hey, you know what? McDonald's, I've worked in fast food before. I've come home stinking like French fry. Anybody else? That lingers with you, right? Yeah. And I've eaten plenty of them as well. So I know what it's like to be in food service. I understand some of the culture of it. It was a while ago, and I'm not going to go into great depth and detail. I might have a single bullet that indicates how many happy little campers I fed and how much money we took in or any improvements I might have made on the job. But it's a note I'll only include when it's relevant, and that was from a long time ago at this point.
Absolutely. We have a question right up front here.
Yeah. Good.
Is this on? My name is Sean Korb. I'm 3 months away from graduating from game art and soon to be applying and working on my resume right now. Since I'm in the art industry, what's your opinion on an artistic resume? Something that's colorful or completely different. I actually made a resume that's all black and then white lettering and put some of my own art on it and stuff like that. What's your opinion on standing or trying to stand out in that way?
Okay. I think for all resumes, what you'll find is that it varies in opinion greatly based on who's reviewing it. So I know there was a speaker earlier today who mentioned about in his artistic pursuits, he likes resumes that are an illustrator, for instance. Okay, well, that's fine. He likes that. In many companies, there's going to be an HR person, boring HR guy like me, as the gate in between you and the creative who might enjoy the resume with inverted colors and all of that. You've got to get past me and my little resume computer before you're ever going to see somebody who will appreciate how creative you are. So when in doubt, content is king. What matters most is using the signs to describe what the experiences are that make you unique. What matters less is how creative the resume is put together. I've never heard a recruiter say, they had too much good content, it was too relevant, I can't work with that. No one's going to say that, right? But I have had applicants come into my office. This lady, she was like, oh, I'm a graphic designer. I said, oh, that's nice. She's like, so I brought my resume. This is the ace of diamonds. She pulls out a pack of cards. This is the ace of diamonds because I'm a diamond in the rough. This is the ace of hearts because I lead with my heart. I'm like, we are not going to get through jacks. Like, that is not going to happen. You need to sit down, and do you have a paper resume? No, we'll wing it. So that did not work, and even if she was a great graphic designer and they were custom cards, that's not what I responded to. I wanted to know more about her skills and what might make her successful than I cared about her presentation.
Thank you.
Yep. Another question out there? Down this way, yep. Good.
Hey, this is from one of the online folks. Her name is Jana, and she asks, What about education listed on a resume? How would you use the signs to detail the education, or would that be beneficial?
Right. So as far as describing your education with the signs, it depends, in short. I don't need like your whole curriculum of every class. I went to English 101 and 102 and 103. And I don't care about that, right? If you had coursework that was unique, like at a fabulous institution like Full Sail, where it's like industry-leading coursework that nobody else can do with a teacher that's renowned in the business, great. That might be a cool note, because in my field of applicants, most of them probably didn't go to the school or program that you went to, right? If we're applying at a nationwide firm. So education could be unique just in and of itself. But I also want to know, what did you work on, or what was the benefit that you gained from that education beyond sitting in a class? You might have sat in a class with Steven Spielberg himself on directing. Doesn't mean you were any good at it. It just means you sat there, right? So did you do an internship? Did you do a project in that class that was unique? What was the impact that it made? What were the skills that you learned? Are they skills that matter to me? I'm telling you what I need as far as your education goes. It's usually something like bachelor's degree or equivalent. It might not be any more information than that. If you can tell me why your bachelor's degree or equivalent is better than the average one, well, that's great. If you can quantify it using the signs, that's even better. And again, where you put your education will vary, and the more relevant it is, the more I want to know about it. Thanks, Jana. Another one? Yeah.
For international student coming to United States, and like majority of the works that I've done are being done abroad, and sometimes people like need reference for like the job, like people I've worked for. But if they're like abroad, or like not know English language, or there's no way to like contact previous employers, what would you like suggest in that case?
Okay, so specifically about references who speak a foreign language, may be located abroad, or maybe you can't even locate them. That can be true for domestic references too, right? They went out of business, they died, whatever the case is, right? A couple things on this topic. Number one, if you're giving me foreign experience on a resume, that's fine. All experience counts when it's relevant. If I can't understand it, you may have to give me some context. I was doing a review with a Full Sail student, actually, who traveled from Russia to attend, or at some point had lived in Russia, and she had some great relevant experience there. And I said, that's great, but I didn't even understand the name of the city that she typed, or that I was looking at the name of a city. So I needed a little more information, because the extent of my Russian is like, Меня зовут Scott, что ты делаешь? Which is like, what are you doing on your resume? And that's about all I know. Da? Good. So she needed to help me, like retracting the particular letters she was using, and it just say Russia was enough. I didn't need to know what city. When it comes to calling references, think of references as tiebreakers. That's probably the only reason I'm going to call a reference. When I've got two candidates and I'm going, they're both kind of good, I wonder what somebody else says. You remember Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Let's phone a friend. So that's like when I'm really down to the wire and I don't know what to do, I might call a reference. You need to prepare your references in advance, and they need to be prepared to talk about your experience using the signs. Because if the last person who has a determination in your job selection experience is someone else and not you, you better make sure they're well prepared to talk about what makes you great. You know? So you're going to go to your reference beforehand. You're going to say, hey, will you be my reference? They're going to say, yeah, you're awesome. Thank you. Can you talk about my experience in the context of the signs? What I did that was really amazing, help quantify. Remember this project we worked on together? And she'll go, oh, yeah, that was great. Yeah, I could talk about that. That'd be great. If he goes, no, I'll remember that. You go, oh, well, remember it was that? No, I don't think so. Thanks so much for offering to be a reference. Don't use that person. Bad idea. So you need to prepare your references so that they can talk intelligently about what makes you a great candidate for the job.
And if I can chime in for just a second, one of the recommendations and one of the requests that I commonly make as a course director in the Entertainment Business Masters, I'll actually ask students to give me a copy of the resume as well as a copy of the job description. So that way I have some idea of how to mesh those skill sets together. As an educator, I can look to see what keywords they're looking for. So it helps us help you. So definitely keep us in the loop.
It's great advice. Yeah.
Oh, hi, Scott.
Hi.
When you were doing your initial research on to build a better resume and stuff, how did you validate your initial data to say that, yes, these steps will actually make somebody's resume better? Did you compare it with other people who were looking at resumes, et cetera, or Is it based off of your own input?
In short, yes.
Yeah.
So yes, I validated with many different recruiters
Yeah.
across different fields, and my network is wide spanning, and a lot of them you can find on LinkedIn. By the way, my network becomes yours when we're on LinkedIn together, so feel free. I like to share the love, and I'll help make connections. But as I talk to recruiters in any field, from the high-tech industry to low-tech jobs to the service industry and everywhere in between, the consistent thing that I heard over and over again was exactly what I experienced in my office. The resume did not tell me anything that I couldn't already figure out. So Scott the French fry cook telling me that I cook French fries and I serve campers is not like going to change the world about what I think about that applicant. And when I said that to other recruiters, they go, yeah, it's tough. That's what happens every day. And I meet people all over the country who have applied for jobs and they go, it's not working. You go, yeah, of course it's not. You're just saying what an accountant does. And a person hiring an accountant knows what an accountant does. It's not like you don't need to tell me things I already know. So everywhere that I go, everyone that I talk to always responds the same way. And that is that more content, specific explanations, and examples, usually the signs, are the way to get your resume to stand out. Whether it's a computer that's sorting through the data, or a live human being, or in an interview too, that's the biggest gap, information gap between you, what your great experience is, and what I'm able to evaluate based on what you put on that piece of paper. We have another question somewhere?
We have a
Yes,
question.
so down here in the front. I'll also mention, in brief, other things you don't need to tell me that I already know. This silly little phrase, references available upon request. I know. I'm in charge here, right? If I ask you for references, you're going to give me references, aren't you? Yeah. You don't write interview available upon request, do you? No. So you're wasting paper and space by writing references available upon request. Have them available, like we mentioned, and vet them beforehand to make sure they can talk well, but you don't have to tell me that. We cool. Go ahead.
Hi, Scott. So I was actually wondering, I was told before that when writing a resume, you don't want to go above, over one page.
Okay.
So using the signs, how would we like limit ourselves? Or because I know that recruiters don't like to like flip pages, or that's what what I understand.
Okay, so about, that question I get a lot. Does size matter? Kind of. And one page, sure, it's great. There's no golden rule that says it can only be one page. There's some recruiters don't like to flip, and that's because we don't have time. If we're reviewing 1 million resumes, do I have time to go to page 2 of resume number 200 and something? No, you're getting 7 seconds. And the 7 seconds better be good information at the top, probably in your summary, that helps me make a determination about your efficacy in your craft and your suitability for the job using the signs of a great resume. That's what matters. Doesn't matter how long it is. So if you're writing a 1-page resume, great. If you're writing a 2-page resume, okay, as long as it's all relevant. Is what you're writing just a job description? Are you just describing basic things that anybody could have said? Probably take it off. If you're on to your 3rd page, we got to talk. I had an applicant who came into my office. He's like, here's my resume. I went, it was 13 pages long that I'm schlepping back to I could barely move the thing. Never mind actually sort through this information. He's like, yeah, man, I've never worked before. I just got out of college, so I got a long resume. 13 pages. I think he included like every paper he ever wrote. It was ridiculous. So keep it. Editing is a key skill that I'm sure many of you may study here at Full Sail. The same applies to your resume. Yeah, there was another one somewhere else. So people ask me about the layout of creative resumes, but also non-creative resumes. How might one lay out a resume for just any job? Does design matter? Well, kind of. And you'll notice I never said use a certain kind of paper or use a certain kind of font. I care infinitely less about the kind of layout and font than I do about the content. Make it easy to read. Make it in a font that is not objectionable. Make it like maybe an older person's going to read it or a person with lower vision, so the 8-point font has got to go. I have never hired a candidate, nor have I met any other recruiters who have ever said, well, I was in between 2 candidates. I really didn't know what to go with, but he used Times New Roman, and it changed my world. Said no one ever, right? Yeah.
Practically challenged to hold it. Hi there.
Hi.
Okay, figured it out. I was curious about objectives. You know, I'm actually in the career development department, and I review resumes every day of my life, all day long.
Isn't it fun?
It's
Don't you
so
love
much
it?
fun. I can't wait to get back to my desk and review some more. Anyway, we've been telling a lot of students that they don't need objectives, really, that, you know, in general, you know, an employer doesn't really care what you want, you know, it's really what do you have, what they need, you know, and so, you know, I was just curious if that's something, you know, you really feel strongly about that they should include. You said in your presentation they should include the objective is to get the job.
Right.
Is that maybe, I don't know, a little redundant or no? Like
So
otherwise,
that's a good question. In the context of what do you want, yes, it's redundant. But that's not the context in which I encourage you to include it. I want you to just write objective literally, no words or sentence, title of the job. If it's entertainment manager, great. Stage technician, great. Director of movies and films and awesomeness is what I put in the job posting, great. You can regurgitate that back to me. You can also put the posting or requisition number just to help route it to the right place. Because yes, a lot of recruiters and hiring leaders print stuff out on paper, and there are literally piles on the desk, and you know, you might be a great candidate for a photography or a videography job, but a horrible dentist. And like, you don't want to end up in the dentist pile because you're not going to do well there, right? So that's part of it, the analysis. And the second part really is about making me know that it's been customized for me. So many people with the access on the internet that you can just blast out resumes everywhere are blasting out the same resume to all sorts of people. If I notice, hey, my job posting alone is on there, that's automatically a little clue to me that goes, she cares about me. She took at least the time to write the job title and the posting number. It's helping me stay organized, and it's showing that you want my job. The custom cover letter and the custom resume that you'll write for each job posting doesn't have to be reinvented from scratch each time. Just customize it to my job posting. And one of the easiest ways to do that is just to use the objective as the title for the reasons that I've just explained.
Thank you.
Yep. Got another one down there. Question in the center row here, I think. Yep. Very good.
Yeah, so being a student, you know, we don't have much of an experience as being an international student.
Right.
So I had a question that, let's say, if I don't have any kind of an experience, but I want to make a resume, okay? So how should I add these signs of a great resume? Because you said that these all things are included as your experience, the things which you did, the achievements which you have. So what should we include then?
Great. So there are a number of ways you can look for experience and opportunities to gain experience even without working. Whether that's you're studying full-time, you don't have the capacity to work, you're a full-time family raiser and you don't have the ability to get a job outside of your studies, you don't have the visa authorization to go to work. Any of those are fine reasons not to be working when you're focused on something else. However, they're not fine reasons to, forget about gaining experience. So a great opportunity is through volunteerism. And whether that is you're volunteering through a project, like in your school, or you're volunteering to help an organization in the community that you're passionate about. I can tell you, there are so many nonprofits, you can't count them, easily. And so many of them would love 2 hours of help from a graphic designer who's got a clue about Photoshop. I know how to destroy things with the magic pen tool. That's about all I know how to do in Photoshop. So if I ran a nonprofit, I'd be like, there's a graphic design student who wants to do something for free. Sign me up. Same goes with video and editing and writing and all those types of things. Just Google or whatever, search your type of nonprofit that you're passionate about. Find a way that you can connect. I got the recognition from the president, actually, the President's Volunteer Service Award for the veterans service that I do, serving veteran organizations and at the VA and a number of other organizations that I'm a part of. That's because that's important to me, and I appreciate helping those who have served. It's in my heart. I love it. I do. I'm connected with the Commit Foundation as a great group who helps special operators who literally cannot talk about the job they did as a Navy SEAL. Tell me some details. No. That's not a thing they can do. So we have to work about articulating leadership skills and going through different exercises to get specifics where we can so that they can qualify for great civilian jobs too. Because I'll tell you, they are some of the most qualified people I've met. Amazing things. They're forming governments in foreign territories and just crazy, crazy great projects they're involved in. And I love helping them, and I do it through a nonprofit because that's where they're going for assistance. Who can you reach out to in your community today that could really use your help? And no matter what field that is. So I'll also say, people ask me about things that you do already in your life, like extracurricular or intramural sports, things like working at a church, for instance, or volunteering. So that's fine. If you want to tell me that you like to knit and you take your granny for walks on the beach and you go to church, I really don't care about those things much, right? Because I'm not hiring your sweater, your granny, or your preacher. However, if you are applying to work in childcare and you run the daycare at your church, experience. Tell me, using the signs of a great resume, why you're a great candidate based on that experience. Yes?
If you are a veteran, then how prominently should that be displayed on the resume if the experience gained in that particular job wasn't necessarily very relevant to the position that you're going for right now?
That's great. Great question. So I get a lot of questions from veterans who are 11 Bravos or 88 Mikes. That's infantry and truck drivers, right? 11 Bravo? All right, hoorah, or whatever phrase you prefer to go by. Well, I was in infantry. You know what? I don't have the experience to quantify. So you know what you do have is you have a lot of great qualities that employers want in every employee, and it just comes with the veteran experience. So I like you to say to employers, I'm a patriot. And it's an acronym. You can find it on scottvedder.com. So it's I possess values, I'm accountable, trainable, respectful, I take initiative, I'm on time, and I'm a team player. Are those values that you want in everybody you work with? Yes. They're just part of the veteran experience. That's just part of what being a veteran brings with the package to a prospective employer, and employers want that, and that's part of why veterans are such a valuable hire. So you can articulate different things you did leading your team or supporting and driving the mission that are part of using the signs of a great resume, even for an unrelated job, when you frame them in those leadership skills that we very much want. Military training also counts. You can request your joint service transcripts from the Pentagon. Uncle Sam keeps everything, so you can go back and look, and you can go to your OERs or your NCOERs, which is your evaluation reports, where you've articulated details throughout your military career to say what you've achieved. And that's kind of like the self-interview worksheet, where you're recording what are some great facts and details. How did I get to that point where I was ready for a promotion? What were we doing in the field at that point? Those are all great things to consider. As far as how prominently you should display that you're a military veteran, the first sentence on that resume better be military veteran. Those two words specifically. Because if I have a targeted veteran hiring program, I'm going to put into my little resume computer, military and veteran. I might not put Marine Corps. I probably will. But, you want to get to the point as quickly as possible. Again, it's about catching my eye in those first 7 seconds. And I meet a lot of veterans who go, I don't really know if I want to mention I'm a veteran. People have these misconceptions. We all act a certain way. We're tough to get along with. The people have all these rumors they've heard about veterans. And I say, baloney. They're not true, by and large, for the most part, with the amazing veterans I've worked with. And the second thing is, if you're applying at an employer who thinks that, to hell with them. You don't want to work there anyway. Another question down this way. Where'd it go? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Chen, and I'm from the game day student, and I'm almost graduate, so I'm applying a job right now. And I Googled the resume something, and I find a system called the application tracking system. I'm not sure whether you heard it before. It's like you fill your resume before send to the HR. So it's true, or if it's true, then how do we pass this system to send our resume to the HR? Thank you.
Right. So by and large, yes, when you apply to a program, you're going to go through an applicant tracking system, a talent acquisition software, Cadexa, Italeo, whatever brand of product they're using. Somebody somewhere is probably using a computer. If you're applying to work on an independent project, on a film that's just getting up and running, that later on there's not going to be somebody working there, maybe they're just doing it off of whatever system and they don't have anything besides eyeballs to look at it. That's fine. But mostly, think about you're going to use this recruiting software, or the recruiter is. So the way to get past the software is to use the signs of a great resume. Plain and simple. The software is going to look for not only the keywords that I've put into the job posting, but also Boolean searches of accountants who also have experience in entertainment, or photographers who can also understand budgeting. And so those types of things, cues from the job posting that you articulate using the signs, are going to be helpful in having you get that job and get past the recruiting software. Because again, the software is just going to give you a score. It is not really like favoring people, or, oh, we know this guy, or, oh, he sounds nice, she sounds lovely. It's not doing that. It's just doing math. The best way to beat the recruiting software is to get in front of it by networking and meeting people who you want to work for before they post a job. Because when the million resumes come into my pile, I go, who do we know already? Okay, John, good. Susan, good. All right, now, resume recruiting software. Look at the rest. John and Susan are already here in the little pile, the maybe pile. That's great because they were referrals. If you can be a referral and you can build your network and interview for the job you'd like before it's ever posted, that's going to be a lot better than you just trying to blast out a resume for a job that 300, 400, or a million other people might apply for. That's the way to beat it. Another question. I know we've got one here. Yes, good.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. It's me. Everybody. Never mind. Go ahead.
You said that, for example, when you have different languages, you want to put that in your resume.
Yeah.
My question is, if my volunteer work relates to that foreign language, is there like a time frame where like this happened so long ago that it might not be how do you say it? Relevant.
Thank you. If you could speak some basic conversational Mandarin Chinese and you're applying in a multinational company that does business in China, basic conversational is going to go a long way to build relationships with our partners overseas, right? So that's a good example of you definitely want to tell me that and why you want to tell me it. I don't need to know a whole lot more about the fact that you speak the languages, unless, of course, that's one of your WOW accomplishments and you're applying to be a translator or you're applying to be the director of some kind of program that is working with a foreign body, whether that's the stars of the show or the profile of the people you're doing the documentary on, whatever. If that's really critical, you can give me more information. Otherwise, the simple note that you speak it is probably good. For most other skills that you mention, I'm going to want to get the details later. That's why I call it the coming attractions, because I need to see it in the final cut. And that's got to be with the signs of a great resume below. And we have another question here as well. Down the center here, yep. So in general, of course, you're going to provide the information on the signs on your resume. You only, of course, want to put things that are true, because much like languages, I might ask you about it, and you cannot, make stuff up. You will get fired for that very many times. But you don't have to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Like, it's not a deposition, okay? So you don't have to give me every job you ever had. You don't have to give me every detail about where you used your Spanish. I went to the store, a la tienda. I went to the library, a la biblia. You get the point. Go ahead. Thank you.
My question was about how much because we learn a lot of software here at the school, and how much of that should we put in our resumes?
That's a great
question.
Because
there's not a lot of space for that.
That's right. So how much of your software should you include? Look at how much I included. How important is it to me? I think your career services professional mentioned it before, and kind of alluded to the point that I make here, is that your resume really is not about you. It's about me. Hate to break it to you. It's really, what can you do for me? What are the skills you bring to me that are valuable to me? So for instance, I like to do yoga. Do you think that's on my resume? I'm not like in the interview like, oh, no. But if I walk in the recruiter's office and there's a picture of her doing, whatever kind of pose, oh, you like yoga too? Okay, great. Build rapport, right? Quick note, hop right into why you're qualified for the job. Same with all the computer software that you might have learned. Great. 75 programs from QuickBooks to Adobe, whatever the heck, to GarageBand, GarageBand, and everything in between. Not a techie guy. It's lovely. You're probably not going to be using QuickBooks and GarageBand in the same job most times. So you can leave off whatever's not relevant. That's always the note. Leave it off if it's not relevant, unless it's a big wow. The whole White House bit always goes on. It's always relevant that I've done that, right? So if you have those big, huge wow moments, you got the Nobel Peace Prize, you mention that. You got a Grammy, good. Tell them about it every time, even outside the music industry, because that's a really interesting wow. Another one right next to you there. Very good. So, speaking of awards and accommodations, or accomplishments and commendations is where I was going, particularly to the veteran experience, but all over as well. So the question is here in the middle. If you have awards and commendations, that's great. I probably don't care about them unless you could tell me why I should. So if you won the spelling bee, I don't care. Ever, really. But if you won an award for a project that you did that is related to the job, great. Show me that among a field of applicants, among 1,000 people that do this kind of work, I was chosen. I was the winner of that award. That's really neat. I made the honor roll. Okay, that's good. while you're just getting out of school in a competitive school that's the leading in the industry, great, you could tell me that. I know you're a cut above the rest. That's a quick note. It's not going to be probably a diatribe. But if you were, for instance, running a program about the National Honor Society and you put together all this community stuff and engagement and you raised all these funds and you got new members to sign on, that's experience you can quantify using the signs of a great resume. Clubs and information count too. Basic awards, probably not. Veterans with campaign awards, just I was there. Okay, that's a good note, but it's probably not directly related to what we're talking about, unless that campaign is I was in Operation Iraqi Freedom and this job's in Iraq. You need to tell me that. Okay, what's the other question?
Hello. You mentioned volunteering, and I wanted to ask if I have an old kind of experience in volunteering because, for example, I did a lot of volunteering in 2006, so that's a long time ago. So do you think that's, it's okay to mention such contributions, I guess?
Depends. So how relevant is what you were doing volunteering? Is the volunteering something that's related to me or my job? That's helpful. So if you were volunteering for we'll use the veteran example again, a veteran service organization, you want to apply to work at the VA, hey, great. I don't care if it was 20 years ago you did it. I'm going to wonder why you haven't done it since. But, that's good information to have. The more relevant, the more likely it is I'm going to say, yep, go ahead and put it on. We have another question down in the front here as well. So the timing of both jobs and education and experience doesn't matter as much as does it matter to me? Is it relevant? That's the real analysis here. When it comes to listing times of employment, many people will have gaps, like I mentioned, and some gaps are perfectly explainable and understandable. You can articulate why the gap existed in your cover letter. It's a great place to do that. Hey, you notice I wasn't working for, you won't say hey, but you'll notice I was not working for a number of years. I was completing my education, and now I'm ready to enter the workforce. You notice I wasn't working for the last year. I was caring for an ill family member. The matter is resolved, and I'm ready to work full time. I was transitioning out of the military. I was on sabbatical, doing something. You don't want to say that. But you want to give a valid explanation, quick and to the point. I had an applicant write on their job application. They were employed at this job, unemployed, and reason, prison, and then the other job. So that was pretty specific that he got, and I was appreciative, but I didn't need to know that. There's a time and place to talk about your criminal history, if you do have one. Usually that is just a simple checkbox of, yes, we want to talk about it later, and you discuss it later on. Going to the clink is never on your resume, even if you were a really good prison. No, okay. So what's your question?
All right, Scott, back to 2 questions ago, this kind of leads into it. So for most people that go to college, chances are they're going into a new career, like myself. Is college classes, stuff that you did in school, considered experience, or can you use it as experience? Not necessarily that it would be job experience, but specifically Full Sail, I mean, it's very dedicated to what you're doing. Like, for example, in game art, we do the stuff that we're going to do eventually. So can you use college education as experience?
Yes, you can always use college education as part of your experience because it is experience. You don't even have to qualify it as work experience, that little section of your resume. You just say experience. You can also say professional experience if you did it professionally, but that's kind of getting on the border of did you work? I don't understand. So don't let me ask too many questions about it. Instead, what I'll say is the more you do and the more experience you get, the more I care and the more you're going to be likely to get a great job. I talked to a recruiter in the gaming industry as part of the research for the book, and what she indicated to me was that she sees students from a number of schools, this one among them, and if all they've done is their coursework, okay, everybody from this school did that. Everybody in this program took these classes. Why does that make you unique? Those who also did a side project or developed an app or put it into application somewhere or took it to the next level or really did something remarkable with their coursework, those were the ones that stood up. Not the ones who attended class enough, did good enough in grades, and got a diploma, degree, whatever it is, certificate. Whatever that story is, you need to tell it in a compelling way. You need to tell it using signs of a great resume. Another question towards the back? Yes, over here.
This is an online question from Eric, and he asked about changing career fields and how would you convince someone in one industry that has similar traits of another, like if you were going from technical writing into programming, for instance.
That's great. So when you're changing career paths, the more directly related the career skills are, the better, of course. Most recruiters, myself included, would much rather have someone on board that has years of experience doing something went to school, changed career, and now doesn't have a lot of experience here, but they've developed professional maturity, leadership skills, writing skills in this context. All of those are the things that come with just working for a period of time that somebody right out of school might not have on their own. That's going to help make them a stronger candidate. The more you can tie the two together and tell me the nexus between technical writing and production, the better I'll understand it. So a functional resume where you characterize the types of experience you had as a writer in the framework of what I used for the job posting to say, hey, here are the kind of categories and themes from your job posting. Look at the ways I did that even as a technical writer and in my education. Don't you want to talk to me? I'm going to say, yeah, if you use science. There's another question here. Hi.
I don't know. How important is it to include like the website, like that maybe Full Sail makes us do, or like including our demo reel? Is it that crucial to put it, or should we like leave it for interview? Or
a very good question. So about including your website, generally speaking, I'm not going to go hunting and pecking for more information. You need to put your best information up front and let me see that. Now, when it comes to like filling out the resume recruiting software system and doing the online application, I'm not going to see your work, and if you're a visual artist, that's not helpful. So I am going to need a place to be directed to better information. So a couple tips about that. If you direct me to a general website that's got a big fancy splash page and like I got to hunt around for no, stop it. I don't care what little like fancy graphic moving thing I get to, the first thing in the music and that's not important. What's important is what matters to me. So ideally, direct me to a page of your website that has the most related content for what I'm hiring for, or within that website, make it immediately obvious to me where I need to go. Because if I'm doing that level of digging around for more information, you're probably someone I'm heavily considering for at least an interview. Because I'm not going to do all that digging for 1 million people in that big pile. I'm only going to do that when I've done my no and maybe, and the maybe looks pretty good. So you've got to convince me on your resume using the signs that you're a worthwhile candidate, you've got relevant experience, and quantify how. Then you've got to direct me to a website that's got exactly the information I need and quickly so that I know where to look and so that you have a better chance of getting the interview. Yes?
My question has a little bit to do with what she was saying. I've noticed that lately, I don't know if it's becoming a trend, but obviously with all the stuff with that you were actually mentioning about social media and all of that, I've seen some of my friends that they include the icon or the logo of the social media where they present at and stuff. I try to do that as well with mine and everything. Is that okay? Does it mix a little bit with what you were saying about science? Do interviewers like that? Or is it better to just literally copy and paste the link directly to your IMDb page if you're a film student or your LinkedIn? What do you think about that?
It's a great question. If you designed the F of Facebook, I want to meet you today. I want to know that. That's great. Show me the logo. That probably was not anybody here. It's been around for a long time now, right? I don't care about the logo. I know if you type facebook.com/whatever you've directed me to, it's going to end up with the F on the page and it's Facebook. You don't need to make it cute. I'm a pretty smart guy, and the software is pretty smart too. I wouldn't direct a recruiter to social media because you don't know what's going to dig up once he's on there, going back down through the comments. You ever see that like Michael Jackson meme? I'm just here for the comments. Yeah. You don't want your recruiter just in there for the comments. So you definitely want to consider where you're directing them. A LinkedIn profile is a fine enough place to direct a recruiter, but because it's so much like your resume, and I advocate it be a lot like it using the science of a great resume, I'm just going to get a lot of similar information. So I wouldn't put a LinkedIn profile link on your resume itself. I don't find it valuable. Now, if you're a writer and you don't have a website up and going yet or a blog, why? Then a LinkedIn profile could be a good enough place to start by uploading some documentation for the recruiter to see. And again, those passive recruiters or who are recruiting you that you don't even know that have a job open might find you and find the documents you've listed and go, ooh, I want to talk to her. This looks really good. Hey, I saw you on LinkedIn and blah, blah, blah. I hear this all the time. Oh, some recruiter called me. They found me on LinkedIn. Is that legit? Yeah. Well, maybe. So you got to do a little investigation, right, and determine is this a legit company and what is the job they're applying for. But if you can put good information out there and it's easy to find, that makes a recruiter's life a lot easier. Another question from there?
We have a question from William. He wanted to know if it was possible to get the contact information, first of all, from the veteran organization that helps military special organizations.
Yes.
And he also wanted to know, along with Jana again, if, as a veteran, how you would translate veteran experience into more civilian jobs.
It's a great question. So I have a lot of veteran links on my website, scottvedder.com. There's a whole veterans links page where not only will you find links to organizations that I support, the one I mentioned earlier was the Commit Foundation. There's also a number of links for resources for veterans. So I mentioned joint service transcripts. How do you request those? How do you get your DD-214s? That's the document you get when you leave the military for those that have not served, as well as what are some targeted veteran hiring programs. The government has set up, after my meeting at the White House, maybe I inspired them. No. They set up a one-stop shop, e-source shop for all things veteran employment, so you don't have to go all over the place to find it. When you're a veteran, start on friendly territory when it comes to recruiting. So go to the programs that have targeted military hiring programs, because they're going to better understand how the military experience relates to their civilian job. The best companies have veterans doing the recruiting, so that when you are articulating things from your MOS, which is your military occupational specialty, or your naval enlisted specification, or any of those things, AFSC, I think it is in the Air Force, when you're just articulating the day-to-day things that you did, that's not good enough. I don't want to see a job description from the military any more than I want to see the job description of a teacher. In fact, in a lot of contexts, it's not going to be helpful. I drove a hovercraft. Great. Well, we're fresh out of hovercrafts here, so that's not helpful. Again, use the types of leadership experience that can be really valuable to me. And if you do have technical skills, hey, let me know that. There's a lot of things that people in the military are trained to do, and many of them may have crossover applicability. I think I may have seen a question in the back. I'm not sure.
I think you have answered almost all of the questions.
Awesome.
So I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Scott, for coming and sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge. If we could go ahead and take a moment. And I also want to thank the audience for joining us this evening and going through and learning so much great information. Hopefully this will help you in your journey as you transition from a student to a graduate with employment in the industry. So thank you all so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cassie.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Great examples.